Oh my God, 2 videos for me, back-to-back weeks. I don't know what's going on. Turning back the time, but yeah, I'm trying to kind of get back in the swing of things, and thanks to Jesse Ringley from EMS, I have a reason to today. It was perfect timing. This port plate came in last night to test, and I had time today and just about no other days. So couldn't be better. So what are we doing today? I mentioned the port plate, so here we are. All right, so this is our test plate, and I can tell you just from first glance as I took this out and everything, it's definitely fairly significantly different than what Jonathan and I had tested. I had kind of had 3D printed a couple years back. It's thicker without a doubt, contours in different spots for the injectors themselves. So I think we have a good chance of this working, because some of the issues we ran into on ours and then just never had the time to go forward on it was the plate hitting different parts of the head, really where some valve cover bolts came down and anchored into, among some other things. But I think we got a good shot with this. So we're gonna throw it in there, give it a test. I also have a fair amount of extra fuel line and fittings. So if the plate fits in there, if it's at least really close and we just have to make a couple tweaks, then I will be trying to mock up some lines too, so we get a good idea of exactly how the line routing will go, what it's going to take, which fittings we'll need. Yeah, so I'm going to document that all today, videos, pictures. I'll send everything to Jesse, see what tweaks need to be made, if any, and go from there. So before I get into that, quick reminder of what is on my car now. So what we have currently is the nuke rail with what I'm running now is 1700 cc injectors. What I would probably run in here, and I would definitely talk with Jesse about what he's thinking, but I would probably run 4 1000s or 4 750s, somewhere in that range. Now I'm on full E85, having that 3500 to 4000 cc's of extra fueling is really nice. It's a pretty good sweet spot. When tuning with the R4 and the split second controller, I have tuned with anything as large as 2200 cc injectors in the 6-port, and as small as like 850s. And I think around like the 1300 in there is like a really sweet spot. I think the 1700s, they're pretty damn nice. I mean, all these new injectors are pretty fantastic. But you have the increments that you have to make changes are a little tight. Meaning, if I make a change that raises or lowers the injector pulse width by half a millisecond or so, like that's a fairly big swing on the 1700s in here. It's still very manageable. It's not too much of a pain, but it's probably on the higher end of what I would go. That's why I'm thinking something in like the 750 cc's range for the 4 injectors might be nice. But realistically, I'll talk to Jesse and we'll discuss that and figure out what is probably best. So let me dig into this, see how it fits. Again, I'll document everything, and then at the end of the video, I will probably go through and discuss a little bit more about why this is so important, why this is a huge benefit to the platform, to the community, why I believe the things I do about adding port injection in some way to these engines, yeah, we'll go from there. So I forgot to mention for a second why I am so excited to work in this garage. As you know, For all my previous videos, I have nicknamed my last 2 garages the shed, because truly they were sheds. One was a shed that had barn doors like painted on the outside. It didn't even have swinging doors that we could open. So my dad and I had to kind of build some plywood doors, like makeshift doors, to get a car in there. My next garage, my next shed, it was an old horse stable, and my dad and I put garage doors on that. So, and neither of those had electricity. So it was everything was run off of like one giant extension cord, which is pretty amazing. I mean, my welder, everything run off an extension cord. This garage, while not perfect and nowhere near done, it has electrical. It has a cement floor, which I didn't mention, but the other 2 sheds did not have a cement floor, at least not completely. And yeah, I'm really excited to work. But the most exciting part of that is my new lighting setup. I'm not sure how this will come through on the video. But yeah, I decided to be the basic bitch and buy into the trend of the hexagon lighting. I can't be more pleased. Honestly, I thought it was just gonna look cool, which it does, but so easy to install. The technology where it is today is just nuts. So it's so easy to install, really cheap for what you get. And I was able to do all of this myself in like 3 hours, start to finish. And the entire grid plugs in with one supplied power cable. It's insane. So I could probably link those. I'll link those in the description of the exact ones I got from Amazon. They're fantastic. I absolutely love them. So let's get working. So I'm gonna attempt this time around. I took a lot off last time that I think was unnecessary. I'm gonna attempt this time around to take off as little as possible, notably anything coolant related, because no matter what or where you drain it, disconnect it from, I swear it just never ends. And I always take a bath in coolant, so I'd like to not do that. But this harness will definitely need to at least get some some extra movement on. So I'm gonna be taking this harness apart a little bit, but I'm hoping that's about it. We can move some of the evap stuff around. I think we should be able to do it, but we'll see. All right, time for a little progress update. It's gone quick, well, so far. So a couple things that I want to mention. So disconnect your throttle body, you get space there. You can see all of the different connectors that I popped off. I did end up taking off just my one line from the high pressure fuel pump to the flex sensor. Just didn't make sense to dig back there over and around that. And I'll probably take this off too, because once I get the rail on, I can already see where there's going to be something we got to kind of figure out, because the high pressure line comes up right here and the rail is going to stick out all the way over here. So nothing the right fitting can't help with, but I'll definitely take that off. Other thing I just want to mention, so I'm trying to get better at doing a little how-to during these, and like tips and tricks, whatever. So these are all 10 millimeter bolts on the intake manifold. You can get to all of them if you have an impact, and I don't know where I put it because that's me. So an impact and a swivel impact, and at least like a wobble on it. You can get to all of the bolts like that super quick. The very last bolt on the back, you have to use 10 millimeter on an extension on a ratchet, no big deal. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention is down in here, there's a little tab that holds this coolant line from the radiator. It's hard to see. Don't forget that to take that off before you rip this off. So you can see wow, this is so dirty. Anyway, you can see the gap that's there between the head and intake manifold. So we are good to go. There's just one thing that I have to disconnect. I do it after I have a little bit of movement on the intake manifold, because it's a really tight squeeze, especially for my hands back there. So anyway, on the back of the intake manifold, there is a quick connect with a vacuum line on it. So do not forget that. It's on the very back of the manifold. And when I say back, I mean back here. So straight down there, you gotta pull, you gotta squeeze the clip, and then you gotta pull it back, but it's a really tight squeeze. So that will be that. I'll pull the manifold out, get the port plate in, and then I'll get another update. Little random thought I had while I was taking this apart that I don't think I ever showed anybody, but I run a stock throttle body on mine. There's really no reason to run a bigger one, but the stock one is not designed to be used with a silicone coupler, unlike the 2.5 throttle body. So I just welded some beads on there because they tend to pop off. All right, I've decided to kill like 10 birds with one stone while I'm doing this. So everything I'm taking apart, I'll probably discuss in some way. And they may be in this video, they may be separated out. Anyway, so I'm gonna drain my Tracy Lewis catch can real quick. Something I wanna show everyone is I've been running this through the winter. It took a little tweaking for my setup, but I got it just about perfect, and I wanna show you what perfect looks like. So what I've been collecting, this is over 3,500 miles, maybe a little more. I should change my oil. Regardless, this is through the winter. This is basically every this is probably every 800 to 1,000 miles that I'll do a drain, and this is what we've collected over the winter. Okay, so I really wanted to put this in here and let this all set so everybody could see over a pretty prolonged amount of time what actually is collected in one of these cans. Okay, so you'll see 3 distinct layers there. The layers may look a little different depending on when you're pulling this. Like, I went through the winter in Ohio, which is plenty of, sub 20 degree temperatures. You'll probably get more of that brown, disgusting muck during those seasons. But regardless, you see basically dirty oil, this brown garbage, and then what is likely diluted fuel in there that would have otherwise just been going into my oil and destroying the oil itself. I will be very honest. I would love to say that I take care of this car like crazy, and I'm like super strict on oil changes and all of that, but and I'm not saying that's not the way to go. If you can do it, if it works into your lifestyle, great. But this car has 100,000 miles on it. I've been making north of 400 wheel horsepower on multiple different setups for, so I started that around 43,000 miles. So I carry the one, so we're creeping up on 55, 60,000 miles over 400 wheel horsepower on the bone stock engine, and a ton of different setups, throwing an insane amount of fuel at this with, testing different setups with the 6-port. And I don't change my oil, but maybe 5,000 miles if I'm lucky. I know that's like sacrilege with these, but I just don't. It just never works into my day. This is my daily driver, and it's, I don't know. It just never works in. So my oil life gets to 0. It bugs me enough that I finally change it. That's what happens like 80, 90% of the time. And the car runs like perfect. And I don't even buy any crazy oil. Like, it's just Mobil 1. I don't have any sitting around here, but it's just a normal Mobil 1 synthetic 530. Again, I'm not saying that is ideal. What I'm saying is I run this catch can, and not ideal seems to be totally fine for this car. So, and when I say this car, again, speaking about mine personally, I just wanted to put it out there that, like, I don't, and you've seen how I drive it, I don't baby and pamper it from like a maintenance standpoint either. So I just wanted to get that out there. All right, so here we go. So this is after about 300-400 miles. I pretty recently switched it, but this is like perfect. So this is exactly the amount and kind of like, I want to say viscosity, I don't know, the mix of garbage that I would expect to see if the can is running well, and if the can is set up well and the engine is tight and running well. This is what I would expect to see. So again, my setup is full E85, the 6-port, and stock, bone stock engine. I think we're up to like 95, 96,000 miles now. So again, going from the top. Now all of this, oh, delicious. All of this will separate, and you'll see it take on all 3 layers after a little while, just like the cumulative kind of one that I have going on over there. If you're getting a lot more than that, or you're not getting layering, you're just getting like only dirty oil, or even worse, you're getting like pretty clean oil that's just going through there, that's when you might want to look at your system itself. So in my catch can system, Tracy has been amazing in working with me on getting the right amount of vacuum in different spots. I've come to the conclusion, I think there are potentially differences in the valve cover setup between the 13 and 14s, 13 to 15, and then the 16 up. I'm not exactly sure where the cutoff is, but early models versus late models, Camaros, I definitely think there's something a little different in the valve cover, or crankcase in general, because they seem to need different restrictions. More being needed on the early model cars, but regardless, point still stands. If you're having, what I would say is, if you install the catch can, and you're having any issues with idle all of a sudden, high fuel trims, it appears that you have a vacuum leak, you probably connected everything totally fine. But if there's too much vacuum being pulled in this type of configuration, it's going to actually look like a vacuum leak to the ECM. So if you see that happen, or you see that your can is filling up super quick, and you're noticing that it isn't really separating into layers, and it just looks like clean oil coming out, that's definitely a red flag that you need to talk to Tracy about adding restrictions in different spots and exactly where those should be. I'm not sure exactly what's being put out with the newer kits. I've been kind of working on this setup with him for the last couple of years. delay 99.9% on my part. He's been amazing at sending me stuff to try out. But I will do a more in-depth video of the Canon and how everything works. I did figure out the perfect setup for my specific car, and the vacuum that I pull with my setup and all of that. But now that I want to go back and kind of start from scratch on my lines, remake those. And when I do that, I'll go super in depth on how the whole system works and why it's so great. Got the manifold off. It's a little bit more of a pain than I remember, but really it's just wiggling things the right way. And honestly, there's a few things that don't be dumb like me and just take them off first. So here is where we are. Looks awful with all the extra wiring and stuff I had tucked away, but do yourself a favor. Okay. You probably don't have a fuel line running here like I did, but if you do, take it off, get it out of the way. All of this wiring, this harness that goes across the front of the engine block, disconnect that. That's actually why I took the catch can off, was to disconnect that. Now mine is all a little bit different. So I have got my map sensor running over here, but I also have, trace it around down there. I also have my MAF. This is actually the sensor. So I also have my MAF sensor running over there since I run the blow through MAF. So all of that being semi-connected just made it a giant pain in the ass. It's so tight in there. Just give yourself the room. Disconnect all of your sensors. Get as much of this harness up out of the way. It's still tight, but it's definitely doable. But the other thing, so I was able to maintain keeping all of the coolant hooked up. Yay. I did disconnect the coolant tank. I'm probably gonna have to take this out to get the manifold back in, and then I think I'll drop this down from the top and hope that it fits. It might. It's gonna be close. What else? Oh, so the big dumb stuff that I didn't do at first because I was just being stubborn, trying to take off as little as possible. Take your PCVs out, okay? They stick out just enough to be, oh, that's the other one, sorry. So your PCVs, take those out. They stick out just enough to be a pain in the ass and get in the way as you're tilting the manifold to get it out. And then take out your intake side VVT solenoid. Again, the connector sticks out just enough to be a giant pain in the ass, and you can easily end up being a dumbass like me and cracking that. Now, I don't think it's really gonna matter. We should be okay. I'll clean that up and it should be just fine, but still, don't even take the chance. It's dumb. So in the spirit of killing 10 birds with one stone, now that I have this off, I just want to show you guys what my ports and valves look like. If you've ever seen what intake valves look like on a DI only car after very little time, you'll understand why this is so important and so impactful, what I'm going to show you. Now, as a reminder, this car, bone stock engine, 96,000 miles. I did one cleaning on this before, and the cleaning that I did was literally just I have a media blaster, did the media blast. I didn't heavily soak anything. I did a little bit with a pick on kind of you'll see on the stems, there's still areas that it's just coked on, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna pay too much attention to it, but just having the PI spraying every day, like your valves are gonna be clean. So here you go. It's still, man, I wish I could get a better shot. Oh, there we go. The valves are 100% completely clean. Move over to number 2. Of course, all this shit is always in the way, no matter what you do. Move over to number 2, same. Move over to number 3, same. And back here, number 4, same. Okay, the other thing that you will notice, and I'll grab some pictures so maybe I can focus better, but the other thing you're gonna notice, if you watch carefully, if you look at the color of all of those valves, they all look the same, nearly exactly identically the same. So the next person who comes at me saying that you cannot run a 6-port because it's not going to distribute evenly and blah, 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 blah. While there are caveats to this, and I will put them out there right now, which are the injectors must be in front of the throttle body, point blank period. They must be as far away as possible that makes sense from the throttle body. And then lastly, the injectors must be angled correctly and actually have the tip uncovered enough where the cone of the spray pattern is not inhibited in any way. I'm not going to call anyone out, but take those observations as you will. And if you see where anything is behind the throttle body, the injectors are not angled, and the tips of the injectors may be covered up enough to inhibit the cone spray pattern and atomization of the injector. If you happen to see another kit out there from anyone that does those things, I would not say that it will atomize correctly and effectively and get you the most equalized distribution of fuel possible for a throttle body injection, for a 6-port. Now, with all of that said, PI is still superior. Everybody knows this. A 4-port PI system, while you're not going to get as much of the cooling, effects of a 6-port type system where you're injecting before the map sensor, you're cooling the entire intake manifold, all that. While you're not getting that, you're still getting 80-90% of it. And you are truly equally distributing to each of the cylinders. Okay? So I want to make this very clear. You can run a 6-port and do very well. You can run full PI via a plate and do very well too. They're both options. The full PI with the plate is going to be much more expensive. It's going to also support a lot more power. The 6-port is going to be less expensive. It's going to support less power. These are very simple, easy, basic observations. There should be almost zero debate on this at this point. It's so tiring. So there you go. You can see the kit that I am running, which is the kit that I have sold in the past and may eventually do again, but now if this PI plate works, probably won't need to. But the kit that I'm running, the kit that I've sold in the past, it equally distributes just fine. Car runs amazing, and you will have no issues with pulling, with any of the myriad of things that I have heard for the last, since the first I heard that this idea wouldn't work was probably in 2011, 12. So for the last 10 to 12 years, I've been hearing all these things. They're garbage. It's just in reality, I understand the paper. I understand what things look like on paper. I understand that people love to argue over a keyboard as far as why things won't work. Bottom line, it works. Period. Done. And that's a wrap. So I got that all test fit. There's a few things, few little tweaks, updates that need made, but nothing crazy. It fit with the coolant reservoir, which is nuts. It's tight for sure, but I also came up with, a really good way of getting it in sequence wise, and like minimal amount of things that you have to take off. Wiring is the biggest thing, get it all out of the way. But with the coolant reservoir, there's a way to disconnect it very specifically and clamp off one single line, and you can get everything out of the way and then just rotate it back into place once the intake manifold is on. So yeah, really excited for that. I'll send all of that to Jesse and see what he thinks, and then I don't know what next steps are, but I know the plate is very close, and it would take me, it's a super easy install, especially because I have the wiring for the split second already done, because that's what I'm already running. I already have it set up for the 4 injectors instead of the 2. I just have 2 unused injector outputs right now. So for me to install the plate once it's in its final form, we're talking, an hour or 2 max. And then it's just tweaking my tune from there, depending on what size injectors we go with. But anyway, it would not be one of my videos if I didn't crack a new beer, especially as triumphant as that was. So got Wicked Willie's IPA. It's just a new basic West Coast IPA from Fatheads, but they make the best, some of the best, just kind of old school IPAs in the world. So cheers, they're right down the road from me. All right, so you've seen the clean valves, so you can see very clearly what I was talking through on the video. But the 6-port is working great. The PI will work great. It's pretty simple. There are now a really good solution out there for upgraded DI injectors, with what XDI has put out. I run a XDI pump in the tank right now, but what I would say is, in my personal opinion, if you have the tuning capability, which with the 16 plus cars, it's like insanely easy to dial in a PI tune. But if you have the tuning ability, I would personally upgrade and add a PI system before the DI system. That's just me. And the reason being, the PI will add fuel, which is what you need from the upgraded DI injectors. The PI is likely overall cheaper, or at least comparable. And the PI system gives you so many benefits that even all the OE manufacturers have incorporated. We're one of the last vehicles that's like a DI turbo engine that doesn't run some sort of PI along with their DI. It's because there's so many issues with these engines when you run them just on PI. Namely the issues with the valves getting all coked up and all of that. So if you don't want to ever have to clean your valves, if you want to have beautiful valves forever, you want great airflow, you don't want to have chunks of shit getting into the combustion chamber, you don't want your valves to get heavy, you don't want to, and so on and so on. There's so many reasons to keep your valves clean. Then just go PI. And if on top of that you want what's really a big problem on these cars, which is you want some even heat distribution and cooling throughout the cylinder, which is something that is so incredibly overlooked on these. I've brought it up a million times, and usually it has legs for like a minute and then that's it. But the DI bowl on our pistons is so aggressive. Couple that with the spray pattern, couple that with this weird ass quench area that we have with our pistons sitting like way below deck. It's bizarre. I don't know why they did it. But you put all that together, and what happens is you have this tiny, tiny window of perfection, basically, in your DI fueling and tuning, that if you are not running rich, which guaranteed 99% of you are not running as rich as you should be for protection on these. But if you're not running exceptionally rich, or at least fat, what happens is you have almost no margin for error. And as soon as there's an error, you get a melted piston, or you get a cracked piston. I've seen it a million times on this car. It's so easy to fix. Even if you don't go a 6-port or PI, and you just at least throw a $500 AEM meth kit on there, you just have to do something. There's a reason this car has almost 100,000 miles on it and has made the power that it has and has been beat to hell and so on and so forth, with all these different turbo setups and everything else. And it's great. Like, the engine's fine, okay? You need to evenly cool the cylinders. You cannot have hot spots on the pistons, hot spots in the cylinders, point blank. So I've said my piece. I can't scream it any louder at this point, but I am so excited for this. I really am, I can't wait to have Jesse make a couple tweaks and hopefully get me something back that I can actually install and run and test running. I think it's going to be an amazing thing for the platform if people want to have an open mind and give it a shot. So until the next time, which I don't think will be very long, cheers.